All right, so I'm gonna review my trades today, and yeah, it was a rough morning. First red day in like 3 weeks, maybe something like that. But here's what the market looked like before market open. If I run my pre-market analysis, you'll see that we gapped up really big on Sunday, so yesterday evening, and ES filled its gap, as you can see. Oops, let's do this. This was the gap on ES. You can see that right before market open, it did fill the gap, as you can see. NQ did not though. And Q did not fully fill the gap yet, and you guys know that price action does two things with statistical reliability every single day. It chases liquidity and fills gaps. So I am bearish for this gap to fill on NQ, and that is my only bias of the day. So I'm going to do my best to try to take advantage of that. Instead of keeping this huge gray box here, I just put a yellow line. Usually my yellow lines indicate pivots, which are liquidity pools, right? But I use this yellow line to mark where the bottom of that gap is. So this is my PT for today. 23448.75 on NQ. And we're already kind of close to it. You can see how close we are to it. I don't have a lot of wiggle room as far as, me waiting to enter. So we'll see what happens. This is the first candle on market open. NQ looks a bit stronger. But if this bounce invalidates, I have to get in. This candle happened, invalidated the bounce, but put in a buying wick at the very end of the candle. So I decided to wait for the next one, and if this buying wick pretty much invalidated, I would be triggered in. Normal size trade. Yes, ES is in demand, but I'm not super bullish on ES to bounce out of demand just yet because ES does look a little bit weaker, but they're pretty similar at the moment. And I entered. This candle was a really good candle, except at the very end of this candle, it put in this big buying wick. This buying wick wasn't here for most of the candle, so that was very unfortunate. But regardless, this is a perfect trade. So this was my first trade, and I stopped out here. So minus 28% to start out the day. I'm like, well, that kind of sucks. I don't really have a bullish PT besides pre-market high, which is this pivot up here, this pre-market pivot. So if we get to 505-ish, 23,505-ish on NQ, I'm able to get into calls. Otherwise, if we come back down, I have to get back in. And the thing with gaps is they fill, especially on futures. There's not a lot of gaps on the futures charts. So when you see a gap like that, it is major, major bias. And a vast majority of the time I make money on it. This is one of the very rare times that I didn't make any money on it, but that doesn't mean I was incorrect. So anyways, if I continue waiting, got kind of close to buying calls. I'm like, all right, we may be putting in a cup and handle here, so I'm waiting to buy calls if we do this. NQ looks stronger at the moment. It sucks. Also, it's really unlucky because right after I entered Q puts, NQ flipped super strong. ES did not. If I were at SPX, I wouldn't have stopped out yet. But what am I going to do? I can't really enter SPX. It filled the gap. It's in demand. It's on support. I can't fill down there. NQ is the one with room to go down. And as long as the strengths are pretty similar at entry, that works for me. So it's unlucky here that NQ flipped super strong and kind of skyrocketed up. But I'm waiting to enter calls now. It didn't end up happening. I'm like, okay, this doesn't really look like a cup and handle anymore. So if we invalidate this entire buying wick, I'll be triggered back into calls. Sure enough, I believe I was triggered in on this candle. Let me check my thinkorswim really quick because I think I entered on this candle. Moment. Yep, I did enter on this candle. Now, again, just like the last candle, this buying wick wasn't here at the beginning. This huge buying wick formed at the end of the candle. So I was triggered in right here. So this is stop loss right here. And yeah, again, this buying wick wasn't really here. I kind of caught it on the way down, and then it put in this super buying wick. Super unlucky. There's nothing I can do about it. And of course, ES put in a reversal indication here. But NQ looked like it started flipping weaker until this candle happened. There goes NQ, super strong again. So it got baited in twice, stopped out here. No, sorry. Stopped out early. I stopped out on this candle and I entered calls here. Because I did tell you guys in my channel, when I entered this trade, like right when I entered this trade, I said if I stop out, I have to reverse into calls because I will be triggered into calls. So that was a minus 20. That was a minus 29% loss. So we started off minus 28 and then minus 29. And I'm triggered into calls. And I'm thinking I'm going to go 0-3 today or 0-4. Because, you know, if these calls stop out, I'm willing to give that gap fill one more chance. Fortunately, though, the calls did not stop out. It went from super green to red, so I thought I was screwed here. I'm like, yeah, this is... You can already tell it's a super shitty morning. Like, super, super terrible. You know, doesn't happen very often, but there's no money for me to be made. If there's no major pivot swept, I'm always going to be red on those mornings. Which is not a bad thing at all, because that happens way less than 50% of the time, so it means my strategy is profitable. I did say I would be adding calls if we invalidated this pullback, and we did on this candle. I did average up on calls. It wasn't anything formal, but I did tell you guys I would, and don't do it unless you're willing to stop out. We barely missed PT and came back down. ES is putting in a bear pennant, but we did end up getting to PT, and I sold pretty much everything here except a runner, and I sold that runner after we got 2 red candles right here. There you go. So that was nice. That was a 30% win, and now I'm only red by 1 trade. A little bit less than 1 trade. You know, I should be red by 1 red trade of minus 27%. But realistically, I'm like 120% trade away from being green on the day because I was heavier in this call trade. Now, we are chopping up, and I am thinking we end up squeezing to the upside. We've been chopping up for a while, which is bearish, but the longer you chop up and the steeper it is, the more bullish it becomes, and shorts will get squeezed out. But ES ended up running huge. You know, I debated on potentially entering calls on an ES cup and handle, but I need more than 1 oscillation. Didn't end up getting it. ES perfectly rejected supply, and this candle showed up. Final trade. It's within the first hour. I wasn't really planning on trading again, but it's like there was no news here. Okay. There's no news that happened here. So this looked like a fundamental move and very likely to get to my PT. Now, I did enter half size for the potential head and shoulders, so I will average down on a bounce or average up if we get down to here and finish invalidating the entire run. I averaged down on this candle. Immediately, it's looking rough. You can see that once again, magically, NQ flips stronger than ES. Keep in mind, it's been weaker this entire time. You can see with this bounce here, it didn't get new high of day, and we dropped further. So, yeah, my hard stop loss is roughly here. And then I moved up my stop loss to if we invalidate this little drop, and that'll be it. We do have a perfect trend line, which is very likely to break. Pretty close to a perfect trend line. It's a descending Browning wedge. And luck of the draw, I did end up stopping out. I stopped out early on this candle, actually. Right at the end of this candle, I stopped out for minus 27%. I believe that's what it was. No, minus 37. Not minus 37. Minus 30%. So almost gave back all my gains on that green trade. It would have been if I wasn't heavier on the trade. So I finished today red by 2 trades. I can't trade again. The first hour is up. I did tell you guys, though, I'm still bearish for that gap to fill. But I gave it 3 chances. My hour is up. Honor my stop losses flawlessly. And sometimes you're just going to get unlucky. But I did tell you guys also in my channel, it's pretty rare that I have first hours, you know, market open sessions really bad like that. You know, unlucky strength changes. 3 times in a row, I was triggered into my bearish bias. And all 3 times in a row, right after entering, it put in a big buying wick. Not so much on the third one, but the first 2 it did. But all 3 times in a row, flipped super strong right afterwards as well. So this was a good stop loss. We did get 1 green candle to the upside, but none after that. And I did tell you guys that I'm still very bearish for the gap to fill, right? But just because I'm very confident something's going to happen doesn't mean I don't honor my stop losses. Frankly, because I'm not a smooth brain, and that's something that smooth brains do, because you will never make money trading if you can't honor your stops, even if you're confident in your trades. So I called it a day, but I did tell you guys that, you know, if we do come back down, It's still a good put trade or a short trade, depending on, if you're trading futures. And sure enough, I get back to my charts and it looks like it perfectly swept me out and we got to PT here. So I don't really mind. When stuff like that happens, it doesn't bother me. Because, well, first off, this is the first red day in like 3 weeks. I don't remember when the last one was. It's been a while. And second, I'm red from pursuing one hypothesis. And if you see that later on that hypothesis ended up playing out beautifully, that means that hypothesis is still statistically reliable. Gaps fill on futures. And the fact that the gap did fill, even though I wasn't in for it, means the hypothesis was great. It was 100% valid. Makes me feel better about the losses because I pursued something that was correct. So I don't really have an issue with it. It's just unlucky that that happens. But I did tell you guys that if the first hour is really bad, the second hour is looking good. But it doesn't matter what I think. You guys know my rule is I only trade the first hour. And even if I see the world's greatest setup, I'm very likely to make money on it right after the first hour ends. I'm still going to stop trading because that's what my statistically backed edge tells me to do. But with that being said, does anyone have any questions regarding this trade review? Pretty basic. I got one green trade and got hornswoggled 3 times in a row, and then it swept my stop loss at the very end, and then went right to my PT that I expected it to do. So, not much to update. Pretty crappy day as far as price action is concerned. But hopefully tomorrow is less filled with scams. We have a couple people typing. I'll let them type. Are these like super long questions or what? Today it seemed NQ and ES were very different. Yes, they were very, very different. Does this affect your strategy? Different usually. You notice that most days there's a little bit of difference. Difference between NQ and ES actually make me money most days. Today's a rare day that it doesn't, which is fine. Again, you should not be trading for green days. Like I'm telling you guys right now, you should not care whether the trade you're getting in is going to be green or red. And you should not enter a trade because you think it's going to make you money. It sounds super unorthodox to all you new traders because that's the opposite of how everyone thinks, but everyone loses money trading. You should never enter a trade because you think it's going to make you money. You only enter a trade if your statistically backed and well-documented edge is triggered. And what you expect is not what's going to happen this trade, but over the large sample of trades. So after 30 trades, I expect this win rate and this amount of profits. And after that sample size is done, if I see something I don't expect, like it's worse than I thought, then I go back and change my variables. But with that being said, matches, yes, differences between strength, ES and NQ, aka strength and weakness differences, they make me money most days. But today's one of those rare days where it's like, it's a double-edged sword sometimes. It's going to help you on some days and hurt you on others. But one thing I know is it helps me more than it hurts me. But today, as you can see, every single one of those puts, NQ just flipped super strong and stopped me out. But I never analyze ES and NQ separately. I never do that. I always, that I have them right next to each other for a reason. Like on my chart, it's split in half, ES and NQ. I analyze them side by side. I'm always comparing and contrasting ES and NQ. I can't seem to DM you. Yeah, project. It probably went to spam. I'll finish paying everyone for the giveaways today. Send a screenshot of your win though, project, in the DM for 4. Oh, we have one more person typing a question. Matchy said, I read that some people vary their strategy, but I don't know categorizing them. Like different types of price action, do you adjust your strategy? No. Okay, first off, that's a good question. So if I see different types of price action, do I adjust my strategy? Well, let me ask you this. When you backtest your strategy matches, do you change your strategy? Or do you just backtest the same strategy over a large sum of days or even months, and your end result is your end result? Yeah, exactly. Why would I change anything? And also another thing that I get is like, how do you avoid chop? Or how are you going to avoid bad price action? If I knew that, I'd be 1,000 times richer. You never know what's going to happen. Usually, price action just turns super shitty after you start trading or after you enter a trade. You got to deal with it. It's your job to have an edge, a strategy that is well documented and statistically reliable over a large period of trades. How do you do that? You backtest the freaking thing for 3 months, right? And don't skew the results. Authentically backtest it, right? Don't try to make it green. And if your strategy's been green for a few months, then you just put up with bad price action. You don't change the way you trade. You just put up with it, and your only job is to execute that strategy and honor your rules. Which means if you only trade the first hour, you only trade the first hour. Or if you only trade 5 trades max, you only take 5 trades max. Right? You enter the same size every single trade, that's fine. For me, on FOMC days, I drop my size on my options. So like if I know if I'm going into kind of an unpredictable day, such as this Wednesday, we have FOMC, interest rate decision, and Powell talking, right? It's a fairly unpredictable day. I'm going to drop my size by half. Now, if I look back over all the FOMC days in the last year or 2 years, I haven't really lost money on them. Like I've still been making money on them, but because they're more unpredictable, I will drop my size. But the way I trade never, ever, ever changes. Maybe it'll evolve over time. If the markets evolve a little bit, then I'll evolve with them. But my strategy's been refined for years. So, yeah. Pretty much nothing phases me anymore. It is what it is. Like I either show up and I get bullied or I make money. That's all it is. And I just accept it and leave. That's it. Are your DMs turned off, Project, by the way? Yeah, your DMs are turned off, dude. Turn on your DMs. It's in your settings. I can't DM you either. But all right, hopefully that was beneficial to you guys. I am glad that some of you guys were able to make money on my hypothesis. Not me, though. But, my TA continues being solid, so what more can I ask for, right? Hopefully tomorrow is, I don't get scammed half as much tomorrow. And by the way, this looks good to start running. This kind of looks like a perfect trend line. I know it's not. It's a little bit too steep. Just a tad too steep. But this is set up for a potential squeeze to the upside. If we get back above 23,500 on NQ, it'll look pretty good. But all right, that's pretty much all I got. And if there are no more questions, I'll wrap this up. I'll let you guys know when the recording's posted and send the link to you guys. And then, yeah, we have multiple lessons today. I got to work on my new future strategy. There's a lot of stuff happening. But hopefully this was beneficial. And thank you guys for attending this. And I'll keep you updated on the rest of the events for the day. But all right, I'll see you guys later. Good luck if you continue to trade.